welcome to this episode of Cardinal Film Fights. I'm your judge, host, and moderator, Mark Rollins. Today we have Stuart, Morgan, and Colin, or if you're looking from, I guess, what would this be, left to right?
Yeah.
Audience perspective. Colin, Morgan, and Stuart. So, it really, or if you're looking at the middle, then going left, it's Morgan, Colin, Stuart, or Morgan, Stuart, Colin. I think I've hit all the permutations you can get. No, there's a couple more, but we'll save that for another time. So, you know the drill. We fight about films, usually. Actually, no, it's always, because we are Cardinal Film Fights. We have our 60-second introductions in which our contestants introduce what they're going to be fighting about, our 5-minute form in which they actually fight about it, and then our 30-second conclusions in which they sum up their arguments and make a final pitch. So today, Stuart, Morgan, and Colin are going to introduce themselves. They're going to give their name, their major, if that applies to them, their year, if that applies to them, and a fun fact about themselves, if that applies to them. We'll start with Stuart, go Morgan, and then Colin.
Oh, man. Well, hi, folks. Camera zooms in on the face. I'm Stuart. Used to be president here. I'm no longer president. It's because I graduated in December. Work full-time now. My fun fact? I sell pro audio gear.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a fun fact.
That is a fun fact.
All right, I'm Morgan Fuller. I'm a senior TCOM major here at Ball State University. And my fun fact is I look really bad in hats. It's true.
Like, do you look evil in hats? Or
no,
like
they just don't look good on my head.
Oh,
Makes my head look weird.
Wow.
There's maybe one that I've looked okay in.
Oh. Good to know. And Colin.
Yeah. That's the name. I was an ugly baby, even uglier adult. I'm truly a terrible person. I don't know why you're sitting next to me.
You and me both, buddy. You and me both. No. And of course, we have Vaughn, who's checking our facts over there. We have Paige, who's keeping our time, but we are out a bell. You never really appreciate the bell until it takes a day off, and then you're like, wow, we don't have a bell. So yes, respect your bells, everyone.
You never know when you might lose them.
Yeah, you never know when you might lose them. No angels getting their wings today. So, speaking of... Oh no.
I didn't make that easy for you.
I thought I had a segue lined up, and I was like, wait, bells don't fit into this anywhere. Well, actually, okay, you got this, Mark. You got this. You know what bell rhymes with? Marvel.
Wow. Approximate rhymes work.
Yeah, approximate rhymes for the win.
Or you just say, Taco Bell, which is a franchise.
A franchise. I was going to say a restaurant.
All right.
Anywho, now I like mine better.
Yep.
So
you go with yours.
Okay, so
Marvel.
So Marvel rhymes with Bell, but we're not talking about Marvel. In fact, we're not even talking about DC. We are talking about the best non-DC, non-Marvel superhero movie, and I'm going to continue to say it like Marvel.
It's really going to bother me.
I've started that trend, and I'm in too deep to stop now. So today, we're arguing about the best non-DC, non-Marvel superhero movie. We're going to start with Colin. With our 60-second introduction, go to Stuart and finish with Morgan.
Ooh, last.
Yeah, so what makes a superhero movie special? Well, generally you have superheroes, right? What's like if we think about most superhero movies has been something that we always think of when we think of the superhero, their powers. So why don't we do a superhero movie where there are no powers, except for maybe psychotic violence and strange hoarder and doomsday prep tendencies, and call it Kick-Ass. What we have in Kick-Ass is pretty much a superhero movie with no powers, except for, as I said before, maybe a little bit of mental instability. And what we get is probably the biggest love letter to what superheroes movies are, and at the same time, a complete bastardization of the Silver Age, super corny, cheesy violence, and instead get guns, bullets, and decapitations.
Gotcha. Ding ding.
Wow.
Next, we'll go to Stuart.
All right, so brought to you by the director of Baby Driver, Shaun of the Dead, World's End, I bring you Scott Pilgrim versus the World. So this movie has got a little bit for everyone. It's got a love story in it. It's a kind of a growing up story and an action movie, a comic book movie. It's also kind of a video game movie too, and you could say it's a music video too. So I think that when you go into the depths of like non-franchise, there are a lot of different things you can go with. Like I think we all picked Incredibles because that is the right answer.
Yes.
But when I want to watch something that it's not going to remind me of like the Marvel DC splurge that we're all kind of living in right now. I want something that's going to be fun, something that will like not something that I can shut my brain off though, that has enough context and depth to it that I can like get into, but has that fun visuals, that fun epic adventure that we're kind of going on, and that is without a doubt Scott Pilgrim versus the World. And I have 9 seconds left, so all I want to say is my Taco Bell would have been better. Taco Bell being in a franchise, but we're not talking about franchises, so I just think that would have been better.
Well, you should run for president of the club then. Make
Maybe I should run for president of the club.
Oh wait, no.
Wow.
And we'll finish up with Morgan.
I chose Megamind because I couldn't do Incredibles, and I think Megamind's pretty close, and I think it's awesome. I just think Megamind's a movie for everyone, and I think when you're talking about like the best non-DC, non-Marvel superhero movie, it's kind of important to talk about something that everyone can enjoy. And so, it's primarily geared towards kids, but you still enjoy it as an adult or whatever age you're in. So it covers the whole spectrum, and it's more of like. It's a really interesting film because you start off with a villain and get the hero in the end, which I think is really important to show people that like you're not always what you seem, or like you can change depending on like the environment you grew up in, because I think that's an important factor in here. And I think in today's society that's really important to look at, that we can change and we can become something better than we are. And I think that's what Megamind does. And I think that's a wonderful way to use a superhero movie.
Gotcha. Well, let's go into our 5-minute forum then.
You want to take this one?
Oh.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, Colin, I think yours and mine is like pretty similar. Well, all of ours are similar. I just want to point out that like all 3 of the movies were made in 2010, and all 3 have an average score of 7.5 on IMDb, with I think mine is only 0.1 under Kick-Ass. But where mine shines though, if we go to the Rotten Tomato scores. So Scott Pilgrim has an 82% critic score with an 83 audience score. Kick-Ass has 75% critic score, 81% audience score. Megamind, 72% critic score, 72% audience score. I think all our movies are pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. There's not a lot to like really bash on, but when it really gets down to the nitty gritty, I hate to like take 5 minutes of really pinpointing it, and I'm just gonna point at like the ratings. I will say, Megamind, it's Despicable Me, but after it, like 4 months after Despicable Me. So that was kind of the thing that I thought is like the bad guy kind of has to reach into his good guy side.
The issue here is you get it's a question of do you like Will Ferrell or Steve Carell?
Yes, do you like
in terms
Steve
of your main villain. What I'd like to say is I think in sort of the way I think I view Kick-Ass is it has all those things you would kind of expect in a superhero movie. Just you take out the fact that powers don't exist in this world. It's very much like I said, outside of maybe some of the violence that you get out of it, it's able to tell this superhero story, but there is no power that's the equalizer. Right. It's weapons.
If I can just I don't have a lot to like say about everyone's like individually, but the one thing I would say about like Kick-Ass is it does kind of like rely too much on its Tarantino grit, like violent gimmick. That's the kind of one of the things. And like when I see, I don't see anything offer more than just being violent and then kind of being a partial satire. Whereas I think like Scott Pilgrim, you get all those additional elements. You get like the music video portion of it if you're really into like that awesome like music video kind of style, or if you're into that video game style, like Scott Pilgrim's perfect for that. Yeah. And it almost like you almost say like no one really has powers in that movie either. It's just kind of like in his imagination. But
Scott Pilgrim's an interesting take on how they kind of
vegan
like
police.
On how they. I would say the difference between say Kick-Ass. I mean, maybe say besides the actual stories they're telling, and maybe. I think this is a question of which one better kind of embodies the superhero movie. I think what you get in Kick-Ass, you pretty much it is in many ways it is that satire of superhero movies, but it's also in being a satire, it is very key to all the tropes that you kind of need in it. You have some of the scene where comes to that realization, I'm not a superhero. In the drug, I believe the apartment scene that ends in a lot of bloodshed. It's sort of that coming to realization. So you have that moment of some of that very lighthearted moments in the beginning part of the movie, and that wanting to be a superhero, and then you get that nice complete stripping away of it.
I just think it relies too much on it, and I think that when you're going for a variety that a lot of people are going to get behind, I think when you get Edgar Wright with a big visual budget and then a great cast, Scott Pilgrim versus the World is something you can sit down in front of everybody and.
But the question is, are we talking widespread appeal? Because Kick-Ass is very much. The issue is that you get with it.
We've had this argument before, Colin.
Well, yeah, I know we've had it before.
Long ago.
But it's that question of I think Megamind does a good job of playing to all audience, but just because it plays to all audience doesn't make it the better film. And I think what we need to look at is which one I feel better is not just.
I think when arguing about you're saying that Megamind's not the better film, I want to just say that if you're looking at, especially even today, and if you're going to rewatch it today and even back when it came out, the fact that it deals with Megamind going in and he gets dropped into prison, so immediately he's in this really bad environment when everyone else gets to be the normal, and the other superhero gets to be in a nice rich family. So we're talking about environment, and the environment affected him, and it's him overcoming and learning to change from that environment, which I think is really important in what we talk about today, and people getting stuck in a certain environment and having to work your way out of that environment, and just learning to be yourself and learning to be better than you're thought to be. And I think that's a really important message compared to what your guys this is violence and a bunch of the typical superhero
different
type
interpretations of violence. But I think we sort of get that same. We get an interesting take with Megamind. Mm-hmm. We get that failed villain aspect.
Read a quote from a critic of Megamind from Village Voice. If nothing else, I found my son's kryptonite. Boring superhero ripoffs voiced by check-cashing actors. At least Steve Carell used an accent.
Yeah, and just so we know, Kick-Ass did have Nicolas Cage in maybe his least money grab role we've seen in a while.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know.
So. We'll go to our 30-second conclusions. We'll start with, who did we start with the intros? Was it Colin? Then we'll go the other way.
I'll start.
Morgan started with conclusions.
Yeah.
Huh?
Have you started with conclusions?
Have you started with conclusions?
I feel like I started twice on conclusions.
Okay, then we'll start
And
with Morgan conclusions, go to Colin, and then finish with Stuart.
Okay. I think mine, Megamind's the best. Because I'm arguing it. But I also think the whole, rating system is kind of skewed in the fact that if mine plays to a bigger audience, with young people and bigger people, like adults, not everyone can vote and go on the rating system for that, where everyone who's watching, Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Kick-Ass could vote for that. So I think that's kind of invalid there. But I just think that Megamind's a good story and kind of parallels our society today, which I think is really important when looking at a superhero movie. And it's a great, enjoyable film that has comedy in it too, and I just think it's great.
It's great.
It's great. It's great. It's fine.
Well,
it's fine.
And Colin.
So I think the issue with Megamind is it's probably not the best movie in this argument. We can always harp on critic scores, but I would say it's got its issues, and it is not necessarily as good as Despicable Me. I never thought I'd say that. The issue we have is Scott Pilgrim versus the World and Kick-Ass is they very much tell this superhero type story, but I think Kick-Ass is more true to comic book superhero tropes. It tells this interesting story, and I think Scott Pilgrim is got so many different elements it's working on that I feel like it loses that superhero mentality and more as a comic book movie.
And we'll finish off with Stuart.
Comic book movie. All right. I think Kick-Ass kind of relies too much on the Tarantino gimmick that it provides to its audience members while being partial satire, but I don't really get anything else of that. I think one of the most entertaining things about Megamind is Brad Pitt plays this washed up superhero. I just think that's pretty funny. But I think if this is from the same studio that brought you Kung Fu Panda, Shrek, Cloudy with a Chance of Meatballs, and then Megamind follows Despicable Me, kind of leaves a bad taste. They can't really do anything better. And also Despicable Me had minions. I know we hate them now, but in that first movie, banana?
No. Okay. Any facts to check on?
Everything checked out. So nothing to check per se. Everything was true.
I'm just gonna stare at you until you
did
give
check
me more.
the facts.
Oh, I checked the ratings, everything. Everything was factual.
So it is
Are you-
higher.
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
So,
Kick-Ass was
Just
0.1 points above. What was yours? Scott Pilgrim.
Wow, Mark. Oh, I almost
Wow.
called you Mark. Wow, Vaughn.
Okay.
It's all right.
And Nicolas Cage was in Kick-Ass.
There it is.
Yeah.
So
Not just a money grab.
I'm gonna give first place to Colin, second place to Stuart, third place to me.
yeah.
Finally.
Good job.
So Colin, I think you
tried
made
the
a
best
good
against your
point.
It's all good.
I think you made a good point in your 30-second conclusion that Kick-Ass is more true to a superhero comic book movie, whereas Scott Pilgrim is more of a
Haven't seen any of them.
multitude of
Kick-Ass.
genres.
Haven't seen any of them.
Huh?
What? Sorry. Continue.
Hmm?
No. I was just saying I haven't seen any of them.
Oh,
Any of the movies.
You're the worst.
so
Sorry.
I think you made a good point.
When she relied on Craig Sears,
I think you made a good point. Yes. That Kick-Ass is more faithful to superhero comic book movies, whereas Scott Pilgrim incorporates a multitude of genres. And then, I'm sorry, Morgan, they just hit you.
You know, they had a totally different genre than I did. It was just,
Yeah.
it was just hard to come out of that. I get it.
Yeah,
I get it.
They hit you. They hit you hard with the despicable. Yeah, it's. But you did a noble job.
Thank you. I tried.
So to reiterate, first place Colin, second place Stuart, third place Morgan.
Could I come on to the camera real quick to help close this out?
Yes, you may, Nick.
Aw.
Yeah, you're the president.
Wow.
You get to make those decisions.
You're gonna be in it next year, man.
I know, but still. Hi, everybody. I'm Nick Evans, President and Director of Cardinal Film Fights. Before we close out here today, I would just like to. I'm sorry.
No.
I would just like to take a moment to. Okay. Sorry, we're not organized here. This is totally on the fly. I just did this totally on the fly.
Are you telling
Sorry
me he
about
doesn't
that.
have words in front of him?
I don't have words in front of me. I would just like to take a moment to thank everybody here on the show for making this happen. Our amazing photographer, Olivia, our awesome host and judge and moderator, Mark Rollins, our sound engineers, Isaac Andrews and Noah Allen, our wonderful PAs, Paige and Hunter, my wonderful Vice President, Von Storm, our Assistant Director of Photography, Daniel Clements, and our graduating Director of Photography, Morgan Fuller. She's been here since the show started. She came in a few months after I did, I think. And since he's here, I'd also like to thank the founder of this club, Stuart Elmore,
Thanks, man.
and Ball State University, and Professor Gardner for helping this dream. But most importantly, I'd like to thank you, the audience. Without you, we couldn't have this show. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you all for staying with us and watching this. What?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Y'all, I'd also like to thank our most frequent fighter, Colin Sykes. You've been on here, what, 5 times?
I think so, and I tried to make this one as hard to watch as it was having to see Stewie's face again.
Aw. Fun fact,
I
just
love
real
ya.
quick. Morgan
Ish.
and Colin were actually the first 2 fighters on this show, officially.
And Stewie was hosting, so that's of the 5 people, that's 60%.
Yeah.
My dude.
So, from all of us here at Cardinal Film Fights, I'd like to just say thank you, good night, and as always, have a great rest of your lives. Adios.
Bye.
Deuces.
Thank you, Mark. Well done, everybody.
Yeah.
Good job.